I stumbled head over heels into the world of fine fragrances. And it came about through my grandfather's travel perfume bottle. My grandfather was the first person to ever travel through the Sahara in a road car. They were the embodiment of this brave adventurism. Look at the horizon and ask themselves what is behind it.
I'm enjoying a coffee here at Cafe Goldegg in Vienna with Paul-Anton Esterházy. Hello!
Well, welcome to Vienna.
Thank you very much. So, your family, the Esterházy family, is what most people today would call old money. Is that right?
Yes, I would say, with the slight distinction that the money was left in the past. Communism in especially Hungary, where my family is mainly from, has done its part in that respect. But I think the old money label is a bit less misleading. I think more fitting would be something like old values, old aesthetics, old, let's say, heritage,
okay.
Which is the big value
Yeah.
behind a family history like that.
Now, earlier today we had the Esterházy cake. I know there's the Esterházy pattern, which is typically what other people would call the Glen check or the Prince of Wales check. So the name is very kind of prevalent here in Vienna. Tell me more about that. Why is that?
Well, the family has been around for many hundred years, and as Austria went from empire to non-empire to through the centuries, the family shaped the country here and there, culture, in politics, and took part in wars, and yeah, that kind of sips through into the fiber of a place's history.
Earlier you mentioned, old values and old style. How would you define those?
Well, I can only speak for myself, but for me personally, it is an understanding of how you deal with your own heritage, with your history. Mm-hmm. It's a way by your sense of fashion or aesthetics or values, I would say, fill with life whatever you have been passed down in the family, and you have your own interpretation of what these interesting parts of your own history mean, and make them your own, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, in recent history, you kind of found something of your ancestors and decided to kind of turn it into a venture.
Yes.
Tell a bit more about what happened and how you got started there.
So what happened is that I stumbled head over heels into the wonderful world of fine fragrances. Mm-hmm. I sometimes compare it to stepping through the cupboard door into Narnia. For me, as an outsider of the fragrance industry, it was an incredible revelation, and it came about through an artifact that was passed down in the family, and that was my grandfather's travel perfume bottle.
Okay. And
my grandfather, for me, was always a very special character. He was a larger-than-life kind of persona who I was never able to meet because he passed away in the last months of the Second World War, so in 1945. So my grandfather passed away nearly half a century before I was even born.
Okay.
Which is an incredible gap, but the wonderful thing is that only one generation up, I have a link to very much the old world. He grew up still in the kingdom of Hungary, so very much in a completely different surrounding, very much a great Gatsby-esque kind of era.
In a castle, right?
That as well.
With staff and a valet and the whole 9 yards.
Yes, very, very much. Yeah, I think the Great Gatsby analogy isn't too far off,
nice.
Really. But at the same time, he came from a very, history-laden family. He was also let's say, aristocrat of the old guard. He was a very stand-up character. Family values were very important for him, but at the same time, he lived in probably one of the most dynamic eras in recent days, an era where the world came out of complete calamity and a new lust for life came through, having survived, and there was hope again, and the Roaring Twenties were the manifestation of that. And someone like my grandfather, who was in a position to really, make the most of that wonderful dynamic time, did that through race car driving, through horse racing, and through finding adventures wherever they presented themselves.
And of course, right, he fortunately had the means to do all that. Because traveling was very different. Back then it was like something only the rich would do, unless you were maybe the servant that you'd go along and carried a heavy trunk. But he actually went on those trips. I mean, he had a travel perfume bottle.
Yes.
Where did he travel to with it, and how did you kind of come across it?
Well, I'm sure it was part of a gentleman's luggage as a standard.
Like a dress set, like nice in a leather box with...
Most definitely, yeah, most definitely. I'm lucky enough to have some of these luggage pieces and so on. But there was one expedition he went on which especially stuck with me, the story of which, and that was a expedition through the Sahara.
Did you have a family album, or how did you trace all that?
Well, the wonderful thing is, so my grandfather was the first person to ever travel through the Sahara in a road car. It was a first of its kind adventure. And he decided to go on this adventure more or less on a gentleman's wager with his best friend, Laszlo Olmásy, the English Patient, if you've seen the movie with Ralph Fiennes.
I have seen it, yes. But it has been a little while.
Oh, you must watch it again. I think it got 8 Oscars for good reason. And it's just a beautiful movie about beautiful romantic sentiments that really reflect the passion of Hungarian gentlemen of that time. In any case, the English Patient is based on my grandfather's best friend and brother-in-law. And the two young men, they were in their mid-20s, as the story goes, were sitting in St. Moritz, Switzerland in the winter of 1925-26. And it must have been snowing outside, and the weather must have been horrible. And in a bit of a cheeky way, Olmásy said to my grandfather, no, the other way around, my grandfather said to Olmásy, "Oh, this is horrible. Why are we sitting here in this horrible weather?" And Olmásy apparently said, "Well, the Sahara is quite sunny right now if you fancy some sun." And my grandfather said, "Challenge accepted," had a telephone brought over, took it and called Steyr Automotive, a traditional Austrian car manufacturer based in Graz, and said, "I would like a Steyr Type 7 in the port of Alexandria in 2 weeks, please." And that was it. Decision made. No other planning, no other more serious thoughts about it. And 2 weeks later, the two young men boarded the cruise ship Vienna in the port of Trieste and set over to Alexandria to begin that first of its kind journey.
At that time, was it Italian? Was it Serbian, Trieste?
It had just become Italian after having been Austrian just a couple of years before. So yeah, they came really from an era and from a part of Europe where everything was in flux at that time. And in that spirit, that beautiful spirit of the Roaring Twenties, they really they were the embodiment of this this brave adventurism to just look at the horizon and ask themselves what is behind it, and having the means to just find true adventure in a time where a lot of the world map hadn't been cartographed yet.
Okay, so then you found this perfume bottle. Yes. How, from that story, that perfume bottle, how did you kind of get to find fragrances?
Well, that was one of these twists of fate, and it happened during my studies at Cambridge. Mm-hmm. So I always carried this wonderful story of my grandfather with me, and I always wanted to pay tribute to his life and to his character, but I never knew how exactly. And then, as it happened, I befriended a fellow student from my class by the name of Mohammed. And on one of the evenings after class, we would go to one of these beautiful wood-paneled pubs in downtown Cambridge. And over drinks, we discussed a bit of our family background. And Mo told me about his family, which had moved from Northern Africa to London and were, I think, third-generation perfumers. And I found that very interesting. Really? And then I remembered I had this little travel perfume bottle from my grandfather. And Mo, hearing the story, his very kind big eyes got bigger and bigger the more I talked about it, because for him that was gold, an inspiration like that to create a fragrance. And he stopped me and said, Paul, please let me help you. This story needs to be told. This fragrance needs to be recreated. Let me help you and explain you the world of fine fragrances.
Okay.
And as it happened, on the weekends after class, we went out to the Cotswolds to a hobbit-like little perfume laboratory and started based on the dried out base of that nearly 100-year-old bottle to decipher what was in there. And out of that came the idea for our first fragrance, Antal, bearing my grandfather's first name, and that contemporary adaptation of what would have been in that bottle 100 years ago.
Nice. And now you actually made it into a product.
Yes, into a brand to really tell the wonderful story of my grandfather and the English patient Laszlo Olmásy traveling from Alexandria down to Carthon, nearly 3,000 kilometers in about 2 weeks. No roads, no maps, just those two three-piece suit gentlemen, granted with a butler on the back row, driving south.
And how did they get back?
I think they uploaded the car onto a ship to go back up the Nile, but it's a good question. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So your fragrances, did you bring some along today?
I did indeed. Should we try some?
Absolutely. All right. So we got some fragrances here. ESTORAS. Is that right?
Yes.
So how did you come up with the name?
Well, ESTORAS was in fact the Latin form of my family name, Esterházy.
Ah, nice.
So that was a nice way to have the brand stand on its own, away from the history-laden family name.
Yeah. It's a nice flacon and packaging. Where is it made?
So most of everything is made in Central Europe, Austria and southern Germany. The fragrance itself the oil is made in Grasse, where the highest quality perfume oils are made.
In France?
In France, yes.
Nice.
And everything put together here. It's really a product of Central Europe.
So currently you have 4 fragrances,
Yes.
right? Which one was the first one?
Well, it all started with the recreation of my grandfather's 100-year-old fragrance. So our first fragrance bears his first name, Antal.
So, and did you come up with that together with Mo in the Cotswolds that day?
Yes, well, we started deciphering and finding the first, let's say, orientation of what the fragrance would have been. And then the project went dormant for a couple of years. And about 5 years ago now, I, by chance, met Marie Lefebvre, a French nose, professor at the infamous INSIPCA University in Versailles, Fragrance University. And we got along from the very first moment, and she understood what I wanted to do with this brand. And we together created Antal.
All right.
Would you like to?
I'd love to smell it, yeah. So what oil concentration did you go for with this?
We went for 16% on all the fragrances. Because that is a decent concentration. It's not the highest concentration, but for good reason. Because
It's very fresh, kind of more summery, right?
yes, well, the interesting thing is, from a 100-year-old, let's say, dried out bottle, what you can still somewhat decipher are the heavy base notes. So it's the leathery tobacco, patchouli, musk, vetiver, so ambery, heavy base notes. But it was important for me that it would be a more, let's say, contemporary scent, lighter, maybe more unisex. So we built on top of these very classical base notes, which would have, constituted a fragrance from back then, with citrus notes, whole wood, bergamot, and pepper notes, pink pepper and timber pepper, to give it that spiciness, that freshness that you sensed.
Yeah, it's very pleasant. I would say this is more of a summer fragrance in my mind, right? Sahara.
Yes.
What were you inspired by anything else, like the travels and where they were at the time, or was it purely this what was in the bottle and that's what I think I want to recreate, or that's something I think?
The first one was very much trying to capture the essence of Antal, and putting a contemporary, let's say, cloak on it.
Okay.
And that was the inspiration for the first one.
Nice.
And of course, the question is, where do you go from there? I can only recreate my grandfather's fragrance once.
Yes.
But another thing that I was passed down, or that was passed down to me, was Laszlo Oimarsi's travel diary of that journey.
Oh, that's cool.
With the original route they took, with the pictures from the journey, and beautiful diary entries that really brought their journey to life for me. As you can see here, for example, this is the map, the route they took from Alexandria down to Cartham.
Okay.
So,
Alexandria, first day 240 kilometers to Cairo, then Asyut. I mean, they drove quite a bit, 320 kilometers a day in Egypt. I mean, that's
Yes.
driving all day.
without roads, sometimes driving on railroad tracks, driving on dams, and then once they reached the Nubian desert, simply through dunes and sand.
Yeah, Aswan. I mean, it's quite a bit down there. Wadi Halfa.
You said you've traveled the Nile.
Yes, yeah. I went from Cairo to Aswan. I mean, it was maybe in 2015, but I did not go, all the way down to Khartoum. So that was a long journey.
Around 2,700 kilometers in 2 weeks.
That's a lot. Cool. Okay, so then with that diary, you started kind of coming up with other fragrances.
So the concept is that after recreating Antal and capturing his essence or his adventurous character, that we would now invite you into to take part in their adventure.
Okay.
To create fragrances that capture moments of the journey, very much inspired by the diary entry of that moment, by the picture that goes with it, and by following the map down by fragrance. So after Antal, we launched Port of Alexandria. After Port of Alexandria, the second day was they arrived at the pyramids of Giza. So Shadows of Giza is the next one, and we have just launched Shores of Asyut, their first contact with the Nile, on day 3.
All right.
And that is how you join them on their journey.
Oh, here is even a little photo of how the car is kind of
Absolutely.
put on the ship or off the ship.
This is my grandfather's car being craned off the deck of the cruise ship Vienna, with which they went from Trieste to Alexandria.
Why do you think they chose that particular car?
Because it was known at the time to be a very, very sturdy and reliable car for these kind of things. There were quite a lot of, let's say, relatives or people from the same social circles at that time that were looking for adventures to go on, and these kind of gentleman expeditions, and that was the car of choice for many of them.
Interesting. I like your packaging. It's very kind of minimalistic. It reminds me of like Wiener Werkstätte in a way.
Absolutely.
The logo,
it's the logo is a combination of the Wiener Werkstätte logo, the Steyr automotive logo of that time, the family crest. So everything coming into one in a more minimalist interpretation.
And then you have this kind of unusual. It's almost like a box that opens sideways, and there's a little story in 1926, and you see the map here again.
Yes.
From like February 26th. And then at noon on February 22nd, beruffled by the salty breeze at the Mediterranean crossing, the travelers make land in the bustling port of Alexandria. And you kind of open it, and It's nice. You have that kind of, oh, let's picture the car again.
Yes.
All right.
Now the idea really is that the picture, comes through the perfume in the bottle, and that's that moment that is captured by the fragrance. It's really the fragrances are supposed to evoke that image and that emotion of those two adventurers on the teak deck of this cruise ship, arriving in the North African shore, having nothing but adventure in front of them.
All right. Can I smell that one?
Yes, absolutely.
Slightly lighter in color.
Indeed.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise. It's a lighter, more summery, springy scent, right?
Absolutely.
What's the major base note here?
So
I can't isolate it.
So the accord is definitely an aquatic, woody, salty accord. So there's Mediterranean woods like cypress, cedar wood. There's aquatic notes. There's the salt. There's really that sea breeze is captured in it. We have a few curveballs as well. There's a hint of gasoline.
Really?
If you really going deep to reflect those the ships of the port and the car being offloaded off the teak deck.
I don't smell that, but it sounds like a good story. Okay, nice.
It's good that you don't smell it too much.
Yeah.
It's a part of the
Port of Alexandria.
yes.
Nice. And then the third one.
And then we continue to Cairo, to the Great Pyramids. And the inspiration here is that after their first day in the grueling desert sun, the travelers arrive in the evening at the Great Pyramids. They drive through the long, drawn-out shadow of the Great Pyramid, feeling the cool shade of the shadow on their skin and being in awe of these world wonders.
So is it more of an evening fragrance then?
I would say it's more of a feminine fragrance. They all tend towards unisex, but this is definitely a little more feminine. It's
Almost sweeter.
No, I would not say sweeter. It's a floral around an iris root, but not a cute floral. Okay. It's a dark, it's a moist, it's a mysterious floral, which for me was more a reflection of the pyramids, of the Great Pyramids, which for me are a more feminine structure, but something, bold and confident. And that's what we try to capture.
Thank you. ESTORAS, chasing the horizon.
Yes, a little.
Oh yeah, I can tell what you're. I can. It feels a bit more floral, but I think I could still wear it. Probably there's
Absolutely.
yeah.
Because around the iris root, which in itself is kind of a more earthy floral, there's notes of tea leaf and moss to give it that kind of dark and slightly,
Kind of complex flavor. I can smell. It's floral on top, but then there's something else underneath. It's not just floral. No, it's good. It's interesting in a sense. It's not a kind of generic fragrance. It's definitely more the unique spectrum. I feel like those two are more, mass appealing in a way. This probably requires someone who is a bit more, okay, I've smelled all the, Acqua di Gio and whatever. I want something that stands on its own.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. And then our newest fragrance, Shores of Asyut. So this is the second day or third travel day, so to speak. And Shores of Asyut tells the story of their day driving along the shores of the Nile, the dusty roads through wheat and clover fields, and arriving at their Grand Hotel in the evening, sitting out on the porch with a gin and tonic, the gramophone in the background, and watching the sunset over the Nile.
So who organized all those stays and all that stuff? Did they just show up at the hotel saying, please let us in? Or did they have someone in the background making telephone calls?
I think they called ahead, but it's definitely not that they had their entire journey planned out. it was more a going with the flow kind of thing, because they never knew what obstacles they would face or how long a part of the journey would really take.
Yeah, because they had never been there. No one else had done it. So that makes sense.
So, shores of Asyut. Here you can see the view from their hotel.
You got some pictures here too.
Yes.
Nice.
These are all the original pictures from their journey. Here we have, the offloading of the car. This one is an interesting one, actually. This is my grandfather at one of his races, sitting on his Bugatti. That was the elegance with which they conducted themselves, even behind the wheel of a race car.
Yeah, so it was like a flat cap and then the patch pockets with some flaps. He's definitely wearing a kind of sweater underneath with a V-neck. Mm-hmm. You can see that. I don't know what pattern it is. This is more like of a car coat, relatively short, double-breasted.
Probably
lots of headwear.
Knickerbocker trousers.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, here's his knee. I don't know what happened underneath of it, but could be, for sure.
Here definitely we have those. This was already on the journey. Probably checking a burst tire. So yes, shores of Asyut.
We got some camels here. Oh, here, that were the pyramids. Very nice. Oh, wow. That's very, definitely on a sweeter side in my mind.
Absolutely.
But not super powerful. It's more like the first two I find are, more subtle, and that goes more like that. That stands out a little more in my nose. What is that sweetness then? Well,
so it's definitely a gourmand, or the idea was to create a gourmand, but not a sticky sweet one. More of a velvety, dusty gourmand.
Yeah, kind of a bit of powder maybe.
Yes, and then a bit of, again, peppers inside as well. Not peppers, peppers for the gin and tonic idea. So there's tonic notes in there. But with all of the fragrances, it was always of utmost importance to me that they wouldn't be overpowering and overbearing fragrances, but elegant, effortlessly elegant and complex, also in the way that they develop. So you wouldn't want to enter a room and everyone would know that you're there, but it's more...
only in more closer proximity. So which of those four do you find yourself gravitating towards the most?
It is hard to say. It really depends on the mood. Definitely Port of Alexandria would be more of a summer fragrance, which I like to wear in the summer. Antal, of course, is a very personal journey for me, because that is my link to the grandfather I never met.
I can smell that there are wood tones in it now, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was very much the first step onto this journey, and therefore it's just personally very, very, very dear to my heart. But all of the fragrances are very much a reflection of my aesthetic frame of mind.
I find the first two are rather similar. I think this one is, in my nose, the most unusual. This one is also unusual, the last one. Which one was that?
Shores of Asyut.
Shores of Asyut.
So Shores of Asyut and Shadows of Giza are definitely different characters to the first two, which are more woody, both in character. Whereby Port of Alexandria goes more into the aquatic direction, and Antal is more of a very classical, with a twist of pepper.
Awesome.
Fragrance.
So this is obviously, all this was inspired by a gentleman's trip, and you mentioned unisex, feminine, masculine. What in your mind makes a fragrance masculine or feminine?
It's a difficult question that I've never really asked myself, because the fragrances that I created with ESTORAS are unisex for the very reason that I think our fragrances are for strong characters, for complex characters that, feel that that lust for adventure, that curiosity, what lies behind the horizon. And for me, that's more about strong characters than the label of gender. So,
all right. So if you want to smell these or buy these, you can do so in Europe,
Yes.
online on your website.
yes, absolutely.
What about the US?
So the US is a new frontier for us, and we set foot in New York at Printemps, New York, the big Parisian department store on One Wall Street. So this is where you can find us already. And from there, we are hopefully going to discover and explore the US step by step.
Chasing new horizons.
Absolutely.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you very much for taking the time, Paul.
No, it was a pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to work here with you and explore the fragrances. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
And if you want to check out these fragrances, hopefully soon there will be more points of purchase in the US, but in Europe it should be very easy. And you can always reach out too, right, and ask, hey, what's the latest here?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you very much.